Baby, let me tell you something. There's a special kind of pain that sneaks up on you only after a lifetime of being strong. And that morning, when my hands trembled over that cold kitchen counter, I realized I'd been strong for everybody but myself. I held that whole family together like glue, and somehow still ended up the one left shattered on the floor. I remember that day like it's stitched into my soul. The sun wasn't even up yet, just a faint gray leaking through the blinds. I stood there in my robe, the one my son Marcus bought me for Mother's Day years ago, back when he still looked at me like I hung the moon. Back before that girl, Tasha, came into the picture and turned my own child into a stranger. I put on a pot of coffee, telling myself today would be different, that maybe, just maybe, my phone would ring. Maybe Marcus would check on his mama. Maybe he'd remember I wasn't made of stone. But that phone stayed silent. Sometimes silence speaks louder than screaming. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around my mug like I needed it to keep me from disappearing. I spent my whole life holding this family together. I whispered to nobody. Where is everybody now? My sister Lorraine used to say I mothered too hard. She'd shake her head and tell me, "Girl, you can't pour and never refill." But that's what mothers do, right? We pour, we give, we bend, we sacrifice our body first, then our time, then our dreams, and finally, when all else is used up, we sacrifice pieces of our heart. And I gave every last piece to Marcus. He was my miracle baby. After 2 miscarriages and 1 doctor telling me I'd never carry full term, he came into my life screaming and healthy and perfect. I raised that boy on love, discipline, and Sunday morning gospel. I worked double shifts, tucked away every extra dollar, pushed him through school, and prayed over him every night. Then he met her. Now don't get me wrong, I tried to give Tasha a fair chance. Lord knows I did. But some women carry storms inside them that don't show until they've found a home to tear apart. And she found one in my son. It started small. She didn't like how often he came by to check on me. She didn't like how I seasoned my food. She didn't like how I decorated my house. She didn't like the sound of my voice, the way I laughed, the way Marcus hugged me. And little by little, my son stopped coming around. Little by little, he stopped answering my calls. Little by little, he forgot the woman who raised him. I tried to stay calm. I told myself it was just growing pains, new relationship jitters. But the day he told me, "Ma, maybe you should give us some space," I felt something inside me crumble. Space. Baby. I had already given that boy the world. That morning in the kitchen, that ache in my chest felt heavier than usual. Old age loneliness is a quiet kind of heartbreak. It don't announce itself. It just slowly takes up residence in your bones. I walked to the living room and looked at the family pictures on the wall. Marcus as a baby, Marcus in his graduation gown, Marcus with his first apartment keys, and the last picture, Marcus and Tasha at their engagement dinner, both smiling like they had the whole world ahead of them. I wasn't invited to that dinner, they told me after. My throat tightened as I whispered, "What did I do wrong?" But deep down, I knew this wasn't about what I did. It was about what I allowed, and what I never said. And, Lord help me, I felt something rising inside me that morning. A storm of my own. Because a mother can take only so much before she stops breaking, and starts remembering who she really is. Baby. The day everything truly started unraveling didn't come with thunder or warning. It came softly, like a whisper slipping through a cracked window. Sometimes the quietest moments change your whole life. I woke up that morning feeling a heaviness in my spirit, a kind of weight old folks say means something's coming. My body ached, but it wasn't the usual kind of ache. This one felt deeper, like it lived in my bones, settling there after years of disappointment. Years of bending but never breaking. As I eased myself out of bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror across the room. My hair wrapped, my nightgown a little wrinkled, my face lined with stories. I stared at that woman, me, and felt a sting behind my eyes. "When's the last time somebody asked how you're doing?" I whispered to the silent room. The house answered with nothing but the old wood creaking under the morning chill. I went to the kitchen and started frying 2 eggs out of habit. I'd been cooking for Marcus since the day he could chew. Even after he moved out, I'd make an extra plate sometimes, like maybe he'd stop by and say, "Hey Ma, you got any breakfast?" But that plate always went cold. I sat down with my food, but before I could take a bite, my phone finally buzzed. My heart jumped. I snatched it up so fast I almost knocked over my coffee. Marcus, my baby boy. "Thank you, Jesus," I whispered, breath shaking. I answered, trying not to sound desperate. "Hey baby, everything all right?" His voice came through tight, rushed. "Ma, listen, we're doing dinner at the house tonight. Can you come by around 7? I froze. Dinner? An invitation? "Of course, sweetheart," I said, swallowing the trembling hope rising in my chest. "You need me to bring anything?" "No, Ma, just come on time, okay?" There was something off in his tone. Something stiff. Something rehearsed. But I didn't care. My son wanted me there. That was enough for the moment. All day, I cleaned like company was coming. I picked out a nice dress, put some curls in my hair, even applied a little blush. I felt excited, nervous. Like maybe tonight we'd talk. Maybe I'd finally get my baby back. But when I pulled up to their house, bigger than anything I could have ever afforded, I felt my stomach twist. Tasha's car was in the driveway, shiny and spotless. That girl always did love looking expensive. I walked up the porch steps and knocked. The door swung open, and there she was. Tasha crossed her arms the moment she saw me, her face tightening like she'd tasted something sour. She didn't even say hello, just turned and yelled, "Marcus, your mom is here." No warmth, no respect, just that cold, sharp tone she saved especially for me. Marcus came out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Hey, Ma," he said, giving me a quick half-hug. Half. My son hugged me like I was a distant relative. I smiled anyway. "Hey, baby." We sat down at the dining table. The food looked good. Too good, like one of those fancy magazine spreads. But the air felt wrong, thick, heavy, a storm waiting to break. Tasha cleared her throat. "So," she began, her eyes cutting into me like knives, "we have something we need to talk to you about." My heart dropped. Marcus shifted in his seat, not meeting my eyes. "What is it?" I asked quietly. Tasha leaned forward. "It's about your involvement in our lives." I blinked. "My involvement?" "Yes," she said, her voice smooth but cold. "We think you're overstepping." Marcus flinched but said nothing. My hands trembled under the table. "Baby, I barely see y'all anymore." "That's exactly the point," she replied. "We need boundaries." Boundaries? With the son I raised alone? The boy I gave my whole soul to? The room spun for a moment. Marcus finally looked up. "Ma, I think it's best if you call before coming by, and maybe come over less. Give us some space." My heart cracked clean down the middle. Space again. Always space. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice steady. "If that's what y'all want?" Tasha smirked like she'd won something. But baby, something shifted inside me right then. Something fierce. Something tired of being silent. And that moment, that was the beginning of everything that came after. Baby. When I walked out of that house, the night air hit me like a slap. Not cold, not sharp, just shocking. Like the world was trying to wake me up from a dream I didn't want to realize was real. I stood there on their pretty little porch, my hands shaking, my breath caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. Boundaries. That word kept echoing through my mind like a bell tolling after a funeral. I raised that boy, held him through fevers, worked double shifts so he could have school shoes he wasn't ashamed of, stayed awake through nights he never knew were sleepless. And now I needed permission to be in his life? I walked slowly to my car, each step feeling heavier than the last. My vision blurred, but I blinked the tears away. I didn't want to break in front of anybody, not even the dark sky. When I closed the car door behind me, the silence swallowed me whole. No traffic, no voices, just me. and the loneliness settling on my shoulders like a tired friend who'd been waiting for me to notice her. I put my key in the ignition, but I couldn't turn it. My hands were trembling too hard. "Lord," I whispered, my voice breaking, "how did I lose my own child?" I laid my forehead against the steering wheel. "And baby," I cried. I cried the kind of tears that only come when somebody you love pushes you so far away you start questioning your own worth. Tears that taste like years. Years of giving, years of forgiving, years of hoping. When I finally mustered the strength to drive home, the world outside the window looked blurry, like even the streetlights were watching me with pity. I pulled into my driveway, and the house looked bigger than usual, and emptier. That's the curse of old age loneliness. It turns your own home into a stranger. I stepped inside and locked the door slower than normal, like each click was sealing me into a space I didn't quite recognize anymore. I went to the living room and stood in front of my family pictures again. My fingers brushed over Marcus's graduation photo. "You said boundaries," I whispered to his smiling teenage face. "Funny how the people who raise you never get boundaries until they're no longer useful." The hurt in my chest pulsed, but there was something else too. Something warmer, something rising. Anger. Not wild anger, not reckless anger, but that quiet, womanly anger, the kind that builds over years of silence and sacrifice, the kind that comes from knowing you deserved better. I sat down on the couch and stared at the ceiling. Memories rolled over me like tides. I remembered Marcus as a little boy, hugging my waist and saying, "You're the best mama in the world." I remembered the way he'd look for me in the audience during school plays, eyes shining the moment he found me. I remembered his graduation night, when he held my hand and said, "Ma, I'm gonna make you proud." And now here he was, letting somebody who barely knew the soil he grew out of decide how close his roots could be to mine. A soft knock broke my thoughts. I froze. Another knock, gentle, hesitant. I wasn't expecting anybody. My heart quickened as I went to the door. When I opened it, my sister Lorraine stood there, her eyes warm and knowing. "Ain't seen you in a minute," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Something told me you needed me tonight." I tried to smile, but my face crumbled. Lorraine took one look at me and wrapped her arms around me. "Oh, honey," she whispered. "What happened?" And just like that, the dam inside me broke again. I told her everything, every word, every tone, every little cut Tasha had made, every silence Marcus allowed. When I finished, Lorraine squeezed my hand. "You're stronger than this, but you ain't made of steel," she said softly. "They think they can treat you any kind of way because you always kept quiet. Maybe it's time you stop being quiet." I wiped my eyes. "Lorraine, I don't even know who I am without taking care of them." She paused, looked deep into my soul, and said, "Then maybe it's time you find out." And baby, something inside me stirred. A small flame, faint but real. A beginning. Baby. Let me tell you something. Sometimes the night brings a clarity the daylight is too proud to offer. After Lorraine left, after the last of her comfort and wisdom faded into the quiet, I just sat there on that couch with my hands folded in my lap. The house around me felt heavy, like it was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd do next. And deep inside, something was shifting. Slow, but steady. I wasn't used to that feeling. I'd spent my whole life reacting, caring, fixing, soothing, adjusting. But this was different. It was the first spark of something I'd forgotten I had. Myself. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I tossed and turned, hearing Tasha's voice echoing, "We need boundaries," over and over in my mind. The way she looked at me like I was a problem to be solved, not the woman who raised the man she married. Around 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely. I slipped on my robe and made my way into the kitchen. The clock on the wall glowed like a single tired eye. I put a kettle on the stove, letting the quiet whistle fill the silence as I stood there, palms pressed against the counter. "I deserve better than this," I whispered to the empty room. It felt strange saying it out loud, stranger still realizing it was true. When the water boiled, I made myself some chamomile tea and walked to the window. The neighborhood was dark and peaceful. A few porch lights flickered. A dog barked somewhere down the street. The world felt big and small at the same time. And then, I startled when my phone lit up on the table. My heart jumped. Marcus? I hurried over, but no, it was a message from Lorraine. Thinking of you. Remember what I said. Don't you disappear into other people's lives so far that you forget your own. I stared at her words for a long moment, then typed back, I hear you. I'm trying. Morning came with a pale gold light washing over everything. I brewed fresh coffee, swept the living room even though it didn't need it, and tried to pretend like life hadn't cracked open the night before. But baby, the universe has a way of reminding you that change is coming even when you fight it. Around noon, my phone rang. Marcus. My breath caught. I answered quickly, trying to sound normal. Hey baby. Ma, he said, sounding tired. I just wanted to check on you after last night. A warmth spread through my chest. Thank you, sweetheart. I'm all right. He hesitated. Then, Tasha said you seemed upset. I closed my eyes. Of all the words he could have used, upset felt so small compared to what I felt. But I didn't want trouble. I didn't want to be the bitter mother who couldn't let go. Marcus, I said softly, I wasn't expecting that conversation. Well, he sighed, we just need space. Boundaries don't mean we don't love you. I swallowed hard. I know, I hear you. But baby. He didn't hear me. Not really. Anyway, he said, I gotta go. Just wanted to check in. Okay, baby, I whispered. I love you. He paused only half a second. Love you too, Ma. The call ended, and something inside me twisted. That pause. That little sliver of hesitation, the kind a son should never have toward his mama. I stood there in the middle of my kitchen, heart pounding, feeling the weight of years pressing down on me. Enough was enough. I grabbed my purse, slipped on my shoes, and headed out the door. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay cooped up in that house another minute letting loneliness swallow me whole. I drove to the park, my favorite one. The one with the willow trees leaning over the pond like old women with secrets. I sat on a bench and watched the ducks glide across the water, peaceful, steady. As I sat there, a thought rose up from somewhere deep inside me. You can't wait for people to save you who barely remember how to care for you. And baby, that's when I made a decision. A small one. But a powerful one. It was time, for the first time in a long time, to choose me. Baby. Choosing yourself for the first time after a lifetime of choosing everybody else feels like learning how to breathe again. Slow, shaky, uncertain, but real. And that afternoon in the park, with the willow branches swaying low like they were whispering encouragement, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. A little bit of freedom. Not the loud kind, not the dancing in the street kind. No. This was the quiet kind of freedom that slides into your spirit like warm sunlight, reminding you that you're still alive. I sat on that bench for a long while, letting the ducks glide, letting babies laugh in the distance, letting life move around me without demanding anything from me. It felt strange to sit without purpose. For decades, I'd filled every minute with doing, cleaning, cooking, working, raising, comforting, fixing. But now, I was just being. And baby, I didn't even realize how much I needed that. After a while, an older gentleman, maybe a little older than me, maybe a little younger, sat down on the other end of the bench, a polite distance away. He nodded with a gentle smile. I nodded back. Not in the mood for small talk, but life has a funny sense of timing. Beautiful day, isn't it? He said, his voice warm and steady. Yes, I answered softly. It is. We sat quietly for a few minutes until he spoke again. You look like you got a lot on your mind. That caught me off guard. I turned toward him. "How can you tell?" He shrugged with a knowing smile. "I'm old. I recognize that stare, the kind people get when they're carrying more than they're sharing." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "I guess you're right." He didn't push, didn't pry, just said, "Sometimes talking helps." And baby, if that wasn't the thing that almost made me spill everything right there. But instead I said, "Maybe another day." He nodded like he understood. "Well, I'll be around this park most afternoons. Name's Henry." "Nice to meet you, Henry," I replied. He stood up, tipped an imaginary hat, and walked away, leaving me with a strange warmth in my chest. Not romantic. No, Lord, I wasn't ready for anything like that, but comforting. Like the world had sent me a little reminder that not all people wanted something from me. Some just offered presents. I finally headed home as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold. When I walked through my front door, the house still felt lonely, but the loneliness didn't feel as heavy as it did that morning. I went straight to my bedroom, opened the old wooden box I kept in my closet, and pulled out something I hadn't touched in years. My sewing kit. Back when Marcus was younger, I used to make quilts. Baby quilts, memory quilts, patchwork quilts that told stories through fabric. After he grew up, I stopped. Life got busy, work got harder. And then, as time passed, I guess my own joy got lost somewhere between responsibility and heartache. But now, I wanted something that belonged to me again. I set the kit on my dining table, spread out some old fabrics, soft blues, warm browns, vibrant prints that reminded me of Sunday mornings, and I took a deep breath. My hands trembled a little as I threaded the needle. But the moment that first stitch slid through fabric, baby, something inside me exhaled. I forgot how peaceful sewing felt, how grounding, how much it made me feel like myself. As the quilt began to form piece by piece, so did I. I wasn't just a mother. I wasn't just a caretaker. I wasn't just a burden, no matter what Tasha thought. I was a woman with talents, stories, and spirit. Hours passed without me noticing. When I finally put the quilt aside, it was close to midnight. I stretched, feeling lighter, calmer, but the peace didn't last long. My phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. I frowned and opened it. "You need to stay in your lane. Marcus doesn't need your guilt trips or emotional drama. Let us live our life. Tasha." My breath caught. A heat rose in my chest. Not fear, not hurt, but something stronger. Something that had been sleeping for years. And baby, that feeling, it was only the beginning. Baby. There are messages you read once and forget, and then there are messages that strike you so deep in your spirit, they leave a bruise on your soul. And when I read that text from Tasha, "Stay in your lane, emotional drama, let us live our life," something inside me snapped in a way I had never felt before. Not loud, not wild, but sharp, clean, precise. Like a thread being cut after years of holding too much weight. I stared at that message, my hands trembling, not from fear, not from shock, but from a rising strength I hadn't realized I still possessed. "Oh, so now I'm the problem?" I whispered into the quiet house. The loneliness around me didn't answer, but I felt something answer inside me. I set the phone down and inhaled slowly, letting the anger wash over me, not to drown me, but to wake me. I was tired of shrinking, tired of tiptoeing, tired of being treated like a burden by people who had eaten from the very hands they now slapped away. I picked the phone back up, ready to reply, but then something stopped me, my own reflection in the black screen, my tired eyes, my heavy heart, my dignity. No, Tasha wanted a reaction. She wanted a fight. She wanted to drag me down to her level where chaos felt like home, but I wasn't raised that way, and I didn't raise myself that way either. So instead of replying, I silenced the phone, set it face down, and walked away. Baby, the silence that followed wasn't empty this time. It felt like reclaiming something. The next morning, I woke up with a sore heart but a clearer mind. I made myself a real breakfast: eggs, turkey sausage, grits with a little butter. Not because anyone else needed feeding, but because I did. After cleaning up, I sat back down at the dining table and picked up my quilt again. The colors looked brighter than they did the day before, maybe because I was looking at life through different eyes. About an hour in, there was a knock at my door. I frowned. Unexpected knocks rarely bring good news. When I opened the door, there stood Marcus, hands in his pockets, eyes darting everywhere but mine. My heart sank. "Baby, what you doing here?" He cleared his throat. "Ma, we need to talk." "We?" I repeated, and then she appeared, Tasha, standing behind him like a shadow stitched to his back. I felt my jaw tighten. "Oh, I see." Marcus stepped forward. "Ma, can we come in?" I thought about telling them no. I thought about protecting my peace. But I stepped aside. Old habits die slow. They came in and sat on the couch. I stayed standing. My house, my terms. Marcus took a breath. "Ma, you didn't respond to Tasha's message." I fixed my gaze on him. Was I supposed to? Tasha shifted, smoothed her hair, tried to look composed. "We just want things to run smoothly. You've been emotional lately. And it's putting stress on Marcus." I blinked slowly. Emotional? Baby, if only she knew the emotions I kept buried. Marcus added softly, "We don't want drama. We just want peace." I stared at my son, my baby, my miracle, my heartbeat, and felt a slow ache spread through me. "Peace?" I said quietly. "Baby, I've been keeping peace in this family since before you could spell your own name. Peace ain't the issue here." Tasha scoffed, but I raised my hand and she went silent. I looked Marcus dead in his eyes. "Son, if you got something to say to me, say it from your own heart, not her mouth." He froze. Tasha's face went stiff. "Ma, I just think you've been overreacting. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal. Years of sacrifice, years of love, dismissed in 5 little words. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed calm. "Marcus, I love you, but I won't sit here and be disrespected, not in my home. If you want boundaries, fine, but respect goes both ways." Tasha rolled her eyes. "See? This is what I'm talking about." I stepped closer, my voice steady, low, firm. "Tasha, you may be his wife, but I am his mother, and you don't get to speak to me any kind of way." Marcus stiffened, caught between us. For the first time in years, I didn't back down. The silence that followed was thick, electric. And baby, that moment changed everything. Baby. The silence in that living room stretched so long and tight, I swear I could hear the dust settling on the coffee table. Marcus sat there frozen, caught between the woman who raised him and the woman he chose. And me? I stood tall for the first time in a long, long time. Tasha was the first to break the silence. "Of course. Women like her don't know how to sit still in tension. They gotta twist it, poke at it, try to make it bend in their direction." She crossed her arms and said, "Marcus, are you gonna let her talk to me like that?" I watched my son's shoulders tense. He looked at me, then at her. His throat bobbed as he swallowed, eyes full of worry. "Tasha, let's just calm down." "Calm down?" she snapped. All I asked for was boundaries, and she acts like I insulted her existence. I raised one eyebrow. "Baby, you didn't just insult my existence. You dismissed my role in your husband's life. There's a difference." Marcus rubbed his temples the way he used to do before exams, like the air around him had turned into a math problem too complicated to solve. "Ma, Tasha's just feeling overwhelmed," he said softly. "Oh, I'm sure she is," I replied, "but her feelings don't give her permission to disrespect me." Tasha scoffed again, her favorite little sound. "I'm not disrespecting you. I'm just trying to make sure you understand your place." My place, baby. Those 2 words hit me like a slap. I felt a heat rise in my chest, Not anger, not shame, but power. The kind of power that comes when you realize someone has mistaken your kindness for weakness one time too many. My place? I repeated slowly. Sweetheart, let me explain something. I had a place in this family long before you even knew how to spell Marcus's name. Her lips tightened. I carried him. I raised him. I fed him when I didn't have enough money to feed myself. I prayed over him. I protected him. I taught him right from wrong. That boy's life was built brick by brick with pieces of my own soul. Marcus's eyes softened, guilt flickering there. So no, I continued, my voice calm but strong. You don't get to define my place. Not today, not ever. Tasha sucked her teeth. See, this is exactly why we need distance. You're acting entitled. I held up a hand. Don't finish that sentence. Marcus stood suddenly. Enough, both of you, just stop. I looked at my son, my heart tugging in two different directions. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room like he was searching for the right words. Ma, he said finally, I love you. But you have to understand that Tasha and I are building a life together, and sometimes you get emotional, you take things the wrong way. That hurt, not because he was wrong, but because he said it so casually, like it was simple, like my emotions were just a little inconvenience. Marcus, I said quietly, I'm emotional because I care, because I feel, because I've spent my whole life holding you up. Have you ever once stopped to ask who holds me? His mouth opened, then closed. Tasha rolled her eyes again, which was her second mistake of the day. Marcus, she said, turning to him, we should go. This is pointless. He hesitated, which surprised her. His hand hovered near hers but didn't quite take it. I saw that hesitation. She saw it too. And baby, the fear in her eyes told me she realized she didn't have as much control as she thought. Marcus looked at me again, softer now. Ma, I just want everyone to be okay. I nodded, keeping my pain behind a steady voice. Then, baby, you need to learn how to stand in the middle without losing yourself, or the people who loved you first. Tasha tugged his arm, harder this time. Marcus, let's go. This time, he let her pull him. But at the door, he paused and looked back. Ma, I'll call you. I just nodded, even though I knew better than to hope. The door closed behind them, and the house fell silent again. But baby, it wasn't the same silence as before. This one wasn't heavy. This one wasn't lonely. This one was a beginning. Baby. When that door clicked shut behind Marcus and Tasha, the sound echoed through my house like a final note in a long, painful song. But this time, instead of breaking me, it settled something inside me. Like the air itself shifted, whispering, now you know, now you see. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the door. My hands were steady, my breath even. My heart, though cracked, wasn't trembling the way it used to. That was the strange thing about truth. It hurt, but it also cleared the fog. I walked back to the couch and lowered myself onto it, my bones sighing as if relieved the charade had finally ended. For the first time in forever, I didn't cry. There were no tears left. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was clarity. He's grown, I whispered to the quiet. And he's choosing his life. Now it's time I choose mine. It felt strange to hear myself say that. After spending decades pouring into one person, building everything you are around their needs, letting go feels like learning to walk after forgetting how to use your legs. But baby, I was ready. As I sat there, my phone buzzed. I expected it to be Tasha again, ready to sling another tiny poison dart my way, but when I reached for it and saw the caller ID, my breath caught. Lorraine, I answered quickly. Hey sis. Her voice came warm and full of concern. I've been feeling something in my spirit, girl. I told myself, let me check on my sister before I go to bed and find her staring at the ceiling like a lost puppy. Despite myself, I chuckled. You're a mess. And so are you. But that's why you need me. She paused. Talk to me. What happened? I told her everything. Again. But this time I wasn't breaking. I was recounting, observing, seeing clearly. Lorraine hummed through the phone, shaking her head every few minutes like she could see the whole scene right in front of her. When I finished, she sighed. Baby sister, she said in that motherly big sister voice of hers, you did good. You stood up for yourself without losing yourself. That woman needed to hear you. Marcus needed to see you. I don't think he heard me at all. Maybe. Maybe not. She softened. But he felt you. Don't underestimate that. I rubbed my forehead. I'm tired, Lorraine. Tired of chasing, tired of trying. Then stop, she said simply. Stop trying to be the glue. Let them hold themselves together for once. You ain't a single piece of tape on this earth. Her words sank deep. Come to my house tomorrow, she continued. I'll make you some peach cobbler. We'll sit and talk like old times. A warmth spread through my chest. I'd like that. After we hung up, the quiet felt different, less hollow, more peaceful. I picked up my quilt again, threading the needle with hands that felt steadier now. Every stitch felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Around midnight, I finally crawled into bed. The sheets felt cool and soft, the room dim and gentle, but my mind wasn't racing the way it usually did at night. I slept. Really slept. When morning came, sunlight spilled across my bedroom like someone had cracked open hope itself. I stretched, feeling lighter than I had in months, maybe even years. After breakfast, I got dressed. Jeans, a soft sweater, gold earrings, hair brushed back neat. As I grabbed my purse and locked the house behind me, I felt a shift in my spirit, a readiness. Halfway to Lorraine's house, my phone buzzed. I parked and checked it. Marcus. My breath caught. The message was short. Ma, can we talk later? Something happened. My heart dropped. Not with fear, but with knowing. Because baby, the universe never stirs the pot without reason. Something was coming. Something big. And this time, I wasn't scared. Baby. Sometimes life hits you with a softness that warns you before the storm arrives. And that text from Marcus, something happened. It didn't feel like trouble coming from him. It felt like trouble coming to him. A different kind of ache. A different kind of shift. I sat there in my car, hands frozen on the steering wheel, staring at those words like they were written in fire. My heart didn't race. It didn't panic. It just tightened, like a ribbon being pulled. I whispered to myself, Lord, whatever this is, give me strength to handle it. I started the car again and drove the rest of the way to Lorraine's house, trying not to let my mind run wild. But baby, thoughts have a way of slipping under doors. When I reached her driveway, she was already outside on the porch, waving a dish towel like a flag of welcome. Get on in here, girl, she called. I got the cobbler cooling on the counter. I forced a smile and walked up the steps. She hugged me tight, her warmth wrapping around me like a blanket I didn't know I needed. But the moment she pulled back, she squinted at my face. What happened now? I sighed and showed her my phone. She snatched it gently and read the message, her eyebrows lifting. You know that boy don't reach out unless something really pressed him. I know, I whispered. She ushered me inside, clucking like a mother hen. Sit down. Let me feed you first. You can't face drama on an empty stomach. That's against the Bible and common sense. I laughed, really laughed, and it felt good. Like something inside me stretched its legs for the first time in months. But even as we ate, even as Lorraine talked about her garden and her nosy neighbor, I felt that text sitting in my chest. Heavy, mysterious, waiting. When my phone buzzed again, I didn't even have to look to know who it was. Lorraine nudged me. Go on, see what that boy wants. I opened the message. Ma, can I come over later today? I don't know who else to talk to. My breath caught. He needed me. Not as a referee, not as a third wheel in his marriage, not as someone he had to set boundaries with. He needed me as his mother. I read the message 3 times before replying, "Yes, baby, I'll be home." When I looked up, Lorraine was watching me carefully. "You all right?" I think Marcus is going through something." She nodded slowly. "Good. Maybe life's about to humble him a little. Lord knows that wife of his got him twisted in knots." I didn't respond, but she wasn't wrong. After a couple hours of sister time and a healthy serving of cobbler, I hugged her goodbye and headed home. I cleaned the house not because it needed cleaning, but because I was anxious, worried, hopeful, all mixed up in one pot. Around 4 in the afternoon, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I peeked through the kitchen window. Marcus. Alone. That alone already told me something was wrong. He sat in his car for a full minute before finally getting out. His shoulders slumped, his steps slow, his face tired in a way I hadn't seen since he was a little boy afraid to tell me he broke my favorite vase. I opened the door before he could knock. "Come in, baby," I said softly. He stepped inside. And the moment the door closed behind him, he just stood there, quiet, still, lost. I waited. I didn't push. A mother knows when talking too soon will break a fragile moment. Finally, Marcus sank onto the couch, elbows on his knees, hands covering his face. "Ma," he whispered, voice cracking. I don't know what to do. My heart clenched. I sat beside him, gently touching his back. "Tell me what's going on." He took a shaky breath. "Me and Tasha, we had a fight." Another breath. "A bad one." My pulse fluttered. "What happened, baby?" He lifted his head, and the pain in his eyes hit me like a wave. "She said she's tired of me choosing you, that I'm too close to you, that she feels second and, Ma..." She walked out, packed a bag, left the house. I didn't breathe for a second. Marcus swallowed hard. "I think she's really leaving this time." He looked at me then, truly looked at me. For the first time in years, I saw that little boy again, the one who ran to me when life scared him. "Ma," he whispered, voice trembling, "what if I lose her? What if this is my fault?" And baby. The moment he said that, I knew. This was bigger than boundaries, bigger than disrespect, bigger than just marriage trouble. Something deeper was breaking, something that would pull me into it whether I wanted to be involved or not. Baby. When Marcus said those words, "What if this is my fault?" I felt a tug in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not frustration, not despair, but that familiar ache of a mother's heart, stretched tight across the distance of years and mistakes and silence. I leaned closer to him on the couch, letting the quilt I'd been working on fall over my lap like a shield and a comfort all at once. "Baby," I said softly, "listen to me. None of this, none of it, is just on you. Marriage, love, it's messy, it's painful, and sometimes the ones we care about the most, they hurt us the most too." He didn't respond. He just stared at the floor, fingers tapping nervously against the cushion. I reached out and took his hand. It was warm, soft, but shaking. "Marcus, do you know how many times I've worried about you? Every day since you were born, every step you took. I carried you in my heart, prayed for you, protected you, and you're not a child anymore, baby. You're a grown man, but that don't mean you have to carry everything alone." His eyes flicked up to mine, and baby, I saw the boy and the man collide in that look, the confusion, the guilt, the fear, and that desperate hope that I could fix it. But I couldn't fix Tasha. I couldn't fix the fight. I couldn't undo the words they threw like knives at each other. What I could do was remind him who he was and where he came from, and that he had someone in his corner, no matter how messy life got. "She's angry," I said quietly, "and hurt, and maybe scared. But anger doesn't mean love is gone. It just hasn't found its way back yet." He nodded, swallowing hard. I yelled. I said things I shouldn't have. I didn't listen. His voice cracked. I failed her. I shook my head slowly. Baby, you didn't fail her. Not completely. You're human. You'll make mistakes, but failing doesn't mean giving up. It means trying, and if you care about her, you'll try, without losing yourself. Without forgetting who you are or where you come from. He pressed his face into his hands, shoulders shaking. Ma, I don't know if she'll come back. I sat there letting him cry, letting him release the fear that had been suffocating him. I had done enough talking for now. Sometimes love, baby, sometimes it just needs to be present, still, silent, a rock you can lean on when the waves crash too hard. After a long while, he lifted his head, red eyes, tear-streaked face, but calmer. Ma, you're right. I have to try, but I don't even know where to start. I squeezed his hand. Start with honesty, start with humility, and start by listening. Not defending, not explaining, just listen, and don't forget yourself while you do it. He nodded again, slower this time. Something in him seemed to shift. Less panic, more focus, less fear, more courage. And baby, that's all a mother can hope for. That her child learns how to stand up without falling apart. He leaned back on the couch, still holding my hand. I don't know what I'd do without you, Ma. You'd do fine, baby, I said softly, but I'll always be here. You just might have to remember that I'm human too. He smiled faintly, a flicker of relief passing across his face. And for the first time that afternoon, the house felt lighter. Not empty, not perfect, not fixed, but lighter, hopeful. We sat there in quiet for a while, the only sound the ticking of the clock and the distant hum of life outside my window. I realized something. Sometimes a mother's job isn't to solve the problem. Sometimes it's just to be there when the problem seems too big to carry alone. Sometimes that's enough. And baby, tonight, sitting there with my son, I realized I had enough of me left to do just that. Baby. That night, after Marcus left my house, I sat alone in the living room, the quilt still draped over my lap. The silence was different this time, not the heavy, suffocating loneliness that had followed me for months, but a quiet, a waiting, a sort of calm before the storm I knew was coming. Because, baby, life never lets you settle for long. I leaned back in the couch and closed my eyes, thinking about the years, the birthdays, the holidays, the nights I stayed awake praying over that boy while my own tears ran silent. I thought about Tasha, the way she'd stepped into our lives and changed the rhythm of it all. I thought about Marcus, my son, caught between the woman he loved and the mother who raised him. And I thought about me. How long had it been since I did something for me, truly for me? Not just cooking, cleaning, or keeping the house together, but something that nourished my own soul? The quilt had reminded me today. Lorraine had reminded me. Marcus, in his messy, broken way, had reminded me. I poured myself a cup of tea, the steam curling like little spirits of hope, and took a slow sip. And then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of my phone buzzing. My heart skipped. I didn't want another lecture, another argument, or another text from Tasha trying to control me. But it wasn't her. It was Lorraine. Baby, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about you, call me. I smiled faintly and dialed. Her voice answered almost immediately. Girl, you okay? I think so, I admitted. It's been a long day. You think so? She echoed, not surprised. Let me tell you something, baby. You are stronger than you know. You've been holding everyone else together for so long, I swear the universe forgot to remind you to hold yourself. I laughed softly, shaking my head. I know, I've been learning that the hard way. Well, maybe it's time for a little easier, she said warmly. Marcus needed you tonight, yes. But what about you? Did you feed your spirit? Did you sit with yourself and feel proud for standing up? I paused. That question dug deeper than anything Tasha or Marcus had said today, and I realized I hadn't. I had been too busy worrying about their feelings, their mistakes, their lives. Lorraine sighed gently. Baby, sometimes you gotta step back. Let them fall a little, let them learn, and let yourself breathe. I held the phone a little tighter. I'm trying, Lorraine. I really am. I know, baby, and you'll get there. Remember, no one else can set your worth. Not your son, not his wife, not even life itself. Only you. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Her words settled like rain in dry soil, soaking through every crack of doubt and fear I'd been carrying. After we hung up, I looked around the living room. The quilt still sat in my lap, the tea still steaming beside me, the house quiet but alive. For the first time in years, I didn't feel desperate. I felt ready. Ready to face Marcus, ready to face Tasha, ready to face the mess of love, betrayal, and family loyalty that life kept tossing at me. I whispered to the empty room, I can do this. I can hold on without breaking. Outside, the night was quiet. But I could feel the tension shifting, like a storm had passed and the air smelled clean. I poured another cup of tea, sat back in the chair, and let the warmth sink in. Baby. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't the ones you fight with others, they're the ones you fight inside yourself. And tonight, I had won a small victory. A victory for me. But I knew. Tomorrow, the storm would return. Marcus and Tasha were still out there, still tangled in their chaos, and I had a feeling it was going to test everything I had learned tonight. Baby. The next morning, I woke to a quiet house, the sunlight filtering through the blinds in soft golden stripes. It felt peaceful, almost too peaceful, like the world was holding its breath before something big landed. I stretched and poured myself a cup of coffee, the aroma filling the kitchen, reminding me that simple comforts still existed. But deep down, I knew today wouldn't stay quiet for long. No sooner had I sat down with my coffee than the phone buzzed again. Marcus. My chest tightened, the same knot I'd felt when I saw his message yesterday. I answered carefully. Ma, can I come over? His voice was low, rough with worry, almost breaking at the edges. Of course, baby, come on. I hung up and began tidying the living room, my mind racing with scenarios. Was Tasha really gone? Had they fought again? Or was this something else entirely? Baby, when your heart has been through decades of family drama, you learn to read the pauses, the hesitations, the unsaid words, and I felt them all through the phone line. When Marcus arrived, he was quiet, almost sullen, carrying the weight of something too big for one person. He sank into the couch without greeting me properly, head bowed, shoulders slumped like the world had pressed him into the cushions. Baby, what's wrong? I asked softly, moving closer. He exhaled shakily. Ma, it's Tasha. She's gone, left the house. I don't know where she is. I blinked, trying to keep my voice steady. Gone? Like, gone? Yes, and His voice cracked. I think she might be serious this time. She said she can't handle our marriage if I keeping you in my life. I swallowed, feeling a pang in my chest. This was the moment I had feared and anticipated for months. My presence, something I had nurtured, loved, protected, was being seen as a wedge between my son and his wife. And yet I knew this was bigger than Tasha's jealousy. This was about Marcus, his choices, and the tangled roots of family loyalty. Baby, I said gently, look at me. He did, eyes glistening with fear and guilt. You love her, right? Yes. His whisper was barely audible, but it carried the weight of a man trying to hold himself together. And she loves you, I continued. Even if she's upset, even if she storms off, love doesn't disappear just because feelings run hot. But you gotta be honest. You gotta face her, not just with words, but with truth. I don't even know where she is, he admitted. I tried calling. Nothing. I nodded slowly, thinking, baby, the first step isn't finding her. It's grounding yourself. Think clearly. Remember what you want. not just what she wants. Don't let fear dictate your choices." He leaned back, trembling, burying his face in his hands. "Ma, I feel like I'm losing everything." I put my hand on his shoulder, squeezing gently. "You're not losing everything. You're learning how to hold on without bending into someone else's idea of who you should be. That's hard, baby. That's scary. But you'll make it through." He peeked at me through his fingers, a faint glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Even if she leaves?" I smiled softly, tears threatening but holding them back. "Even if she leaves, baby, you're not alone. You've got me. And one day you'll see that love isn't about possession. It's about respect, honesty, and patience. That's what will bring her back, if it's meant to be." For a long moment, we just sat there in silence, the room heavy with unspoken emotion. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees like it knew the weight of what was unfolding inside. And baby, I realized something that shook me to my core. Sometimes, holding a family together isn't about stopping the breaks. It's about guiding the pieces so they can come back together stronger. Baby. That afternoon, after Marcus left, I sat in my living room staring at the empty space where the couch swallowed him up. His visit had left the house heavy with unspoken words, but also a strange sense of resolve. I brewed myself another cup of tea, but even as I held it in my hands, the warmth couldn't chase away the cold knot in my chest. I thought about Tasha, about the fire in her eyes, the sharpness of her words, the way she had wrapped herself around Marcus like a second skin. And I thought about Marcus, my baby, caught in the middle, trying to keep peace, but almost drowning in the storm. And baby, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. This wasn't just their fight. This was a reckoning for all of us. For years I'd held the weight of this family on my shoulders, fixing, soothing, tiptoeing around fragile egos. And now, the cracks had surfaced, and they were bigger than I ever imagined. I set the tea down and walked to the kitchen window. Outside, the neighborhood hummed its usual afternoon rhythm. Children playing, a dog barking in the distance, a car slowly rolling down the street. Life continued, indifferent to our dramas. But inside, baby, inside, the walls echoed with years of sacrifices and quiet grief. I thought about calling Lorraine, but paused. I didn't want advice this time. I didn't want guidance. I wanted understanding, the kind only comes from living it yourself. Then the phone buzzed. My heart jumped. Marcus again? No, it was an unknown number. Curiosity prickled at me. I answered cautiously. "Hello? Is this Mrs. Davis?" "Yes." There was a pause. "My name is Tasha. Tasha Williams. I need to talk to you." "Baby." The world stopped for a moment. My heart thudded against my ribs. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I left," she continued, voice wavering. "I wasn't thinking clearly. I was angry, and I don't know what to do now." I closed my eyes, breathing slowly. Tasha calling me directly was unexpected. And I knew, deep down, this was a turning point. "Tasha," I said gently, "you've hurt, yes? But so has my baby. And so have you. You can't fix this by running. You have to face it. Calmly, honestly, and with respect." Her voice cracked. "I don't know if he'll forgive me. If you'll forgive me." I smiled softly, the warmth in my chest growing. "Baby, forgiveness isn't about saying it's okay right away. It's about understanding, taking a deep breath, listening, and then deciding what comes next." She sniffled. I don't know if I can do it alone." "You're not alone," I said firmly. "You've got him, and if you both care enough, you can start over, carefully. One honest conversation at a time." There was silence. Then quietly she said, Can I come by? Just for a few minutes? To talk?" I paused. This was delicate. One wrong move, one harsh word, and all the progress Marcus and I had made could crumble. But something in her voice, something human, scared, and real, told me she meant it. "All right, baby," I said softly. "Come by." But remember, this is about honesty, not excuses." She whispered a soft, shaky, "Thank you," and hung up. I sank into my chair, hands trembling slightly. Baby, the tension in my chest was fierce, but so was a strange, exhilarating hope. Sometimes the hardest lessons come wrapped in heartbreak and confrontation, and baby, I knew tonight this house would witness one of those lessons. Baby. By the time Tasha knocked on my door that evening, the house felt charged with a kind of electricity I hadn't felt in years. My hands were trembling just a little as I opened it, but I held my head high. Because baby, when a moment like this comes, you either crumble or you stand like you've been standing all your life, with dignity, patience, and a heart open enough to hold the truth. Tasha looked different from the last time I'd seen her. Her shoulders slumped, her eyes wide, and there was a vulnerability there that made me pause. Not fear, vulnerability, the kind that makes you human. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I could tell she wasn't sure where to begin. "Come in," I said softly. "Have a seat." We sat across from each other at my dining table, the quiet stretching out longer than either of us expected. The clock ticked, the hum of the refrigerator filled the room, and baby, I felt the weight of years and words unsaid pressing gently but insistently between us. Finally, she spoke. I'm sorry." I held my gaze on her, letting the words sink in. Not just for Marcus, not just for me, but for herself. "Baby, say it again, and mean it this time." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry for storming out, for letting my anger control me. For seeing you as the enemy instead of the person who raised the man I love." My chest tightened, but not with anger. Relief, understanding, recognition of growth. "Tasha, I won't lie to you. You've hurt him, you've hurt me. But baby, acknowledging it, that's step one." She nodded, wiping her tears. I don't know what to do. I feel like I've messed everything up." "You haven't messed everything up," I said gently. "You're human. You're married to a man who loves both of us in different ways, and sometimes that balance is tricky. But it's not broken beyond repair. Not if you're willing to be honest, humble, and patient." She took a deep breath. "Ma, I think I've been scared. Scared of losing him, scared of you, scared of everything. Baby." I smiled softly because I knew exactly what she meant. Fear can make us do foolish things, but love can teach us better. And if you're willing to let love guide you, not fear, you'll see that a lot can be mended. Her hands trembled in her lap. "How do I start?" I leaned forward, voice gentle but firm. "Start with listening. Listen to Marcus without interrupting. Listen to yourself without judgment. And don't let pride lead. Pride only builds walls. Humility builds bridges. Show him you care about him, not just the idea of him being yours." She nodded again, slowly, like each word was a seed planting itself in dry soil. "And you'll forgive me?" "Baby, forgiveness isn't given lightly. It's earned through honesty, through acknowledgement, through real effort." I reached across the table and placed my hand over hers. "I don't hate you, Tasha. I want this family to survive." "But forgiveness isn't magic. It's a journey, and it starts with you being real. Are you ready to be real?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried weight. "Yes, Ma. I'm ready." I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope light the room like the first rays of dawn. "Then baby, take the first step. Go home, talk to him, be honest, apologize, and listen. I promise. If you do that, things can change." She stood, nodding one last time. "Thank you, Ma, for not shutting me out." I smiled softly. "Child, I've spent my life holding this family together, but sometimes I just need to see the people I love willing to hold each other. That's all I ask." She turned to leave, and baby, I felt something shift. Not just in her, but in all of us. The storm was not over, but for the first time in months, I felt that the pieces could come back together, if only we were brave enough to try. Baby. The next morning, the house felt heavy again, but this time it wasn't just sadness or fear. It was anticipation. A tense, fragile kind of hope that makes your stomach flutter like you're standing on the edge of something you can't control, but know you must face anyway. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window at the quiet street. Waiting. By mid-morning, Marcus pulled into the driveway. I watched him through the blinds, shoulders squared, but his hands fidgeting on the steering wheel. There was a seriousness in his walk as he approached the door, a silent acknowledgement that today, things had to be faced. "Come in, baby," I said as he stepped inside. He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "Ma, she's home. Tasha came back last night. We talked." I felt a flicker of relief, but I kept my voice steady. "And?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. "And it wasn't easy. She cried. I cried. We said things we didn't mean, but we also said things that mattered. She apologized. I apologized. And we listened. Baby." My chest swelled, not just with relief, but with pride. This was what I had hoped for, prayed for, and yet, I knew the road ahead was still long. "That's a start, baby, a real start. But it's not over. It won't be perfect tomorrow or next week. You both have to keep listening, keep learning." He nodded. "I know, Ma, and I think I understand now why you've always been here for me, not to take sides, not to control things, but to guide me. To remind me how to love without losing myself." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand gently. "Exactly, baby. And now, you have to take that lesson into your marriage. You can't expect Tasha to read your mind, and you can't expect her to be perfect. But if you both try, really try, love can find its way back." He leaned back, running a hand down his face. "Ma, I don't know what I would have done without you. I mean it." "Baby," I smiled softly, feeling the warmth of years of worry and sleepless nights melting a little. "You'd have found a way. You're my son, but sometimes even the strongest need a little anchor. That's what I am." He chuckled, though there was still tension in his shoulders. "I get it now, and I'm going to do better. For her, for us, for you." I watched him carefully, sensing the shift in him, the weight of fear beginning to lift, replaced by determination. And baby, that's what motherhood is sometimes, waiting until your child is ready to carry their own burden, and then quietly letting them step into it. We sat in silence for a few moments, the sunlight spilling across the table, warming the room. Outside, the neighborhood hummed along as if nothing had changed, but inside, everything had. And baby. I realized that all those years of holding the family together, of sacrificing my own needs, of quietly standing in the background while the world around me spun out of control, it had all led to this. A single, fragile moment where love, honesty, and patience met, and the pieces began to realign. Marcus stood finally, smoothing his shirt. "Ma, I need to talk to her again. Make sure we're really okay. I'll be back soon." I nodded, trying not to let my voice betray the emotion in my chest. "Go on, baby. I'll be right here." He paused at the door, giving me a faint smile. "Thanks, Ma, for everything." I watched him leave, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and triumph. Baby, sometimes holding a family together means stepping back and letting them fight their own battles, but sometimes it means being there when they finally learn how to stand. Baby. The afternoon sun was dipping low when Marcus returned, but this time he wasn't alone. Tasha walked beside him, her hand in his, tentative but deliberate. I watched from the kitchen doorway, my heart squeezing and swelling all at once. The sight of them together, still fragile, still raw, still human, felt like a kind of miracle I had prayed for, feared, and longed for all at once. They paused at the doorway, both looking at me with a mix of nervousness and hope. Tasha's eyes met mine first. I could see the vulnerability, the humility, the acknowledgement of her own mistakes. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, unsure where to start. I smiled softly and gestured toward the living room. "Come in, babies. Sit. Let's be honest together." They did, moving slowly, each carrying the weight of yesterday's storm and the remnants of years past. I sat across from them, folding my hands in my lap, letting the quiet stretch for a moment before I spoke. "Tasha, baby, I've watched you both love and hurt each other," I said gently. "I've seen the anger, the jealousy, the pride, and I've seen the love, the part that still matters, the part worth fighting for." She nodded, eyes glistening. "Ma, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if he even wants me to stay." I reached out and took her hand. "Baby, love isn't about possession. It's about respect, honesty, and willingness to try, even when it's hard. Marcus wants to stay. He wants to love you, but that means both of you must step forward without fear, without blaming, without hiding. Can you do that?" She took a deep breath, squeezing my hand. "I can. I'll try." I looked at Marcus then. "And you, baby? Are you ready to stand in honesty, not just comfort? Are you ready to listen, to love, and to lead gently?" He nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "I am, Ma. I want to fix us. I want to try, really try. Baby." At that moment, the room felt lighter. The air seemed to hum with the possibility of redemption, of new beginnings. Years of drama, of misunderstandings, of anger and resentment, all of it had led to this fragile yet powerful moment of truth. I let them talk, listening to each word, the ebb and flow of their voices, the tentative apologies, the careful confessions. I saw tears, small smiles, and glimpses of the laughter that had once defined them as a couple, and baby. I felt my heart expand, not just for them, but for myself, for all the years I had held this family,